The middle ear is an air-filled cavity located in the temporal area of the skull. It contains 3 small bones called the ossicles. These bones are connected and form a chain across the middle ear from the tympanic membrane to the oval window. The oval window is at the entrance to the inner ear. The middle ear transfers sound energy from the tympanic membrane to the inner ear. This transfer is a particularly effective process. The attic region is situated at the top of the middle ear and extends into the temporal bone higher than the tympanic membrane. This area is also known as the epitympanic recess. The mastoid bone in which the middle ear cavity sits contains air pockets to reduce the weight of the skull. A very thin layer of bone above the attic region separates the middle ear from the outer protective layers of the brain. The names of the ossicles are the malleus, incus, and stapes. The base of the stapes, known as the stapes footplate, sits loosely in the oval window and is held in place by the annular ligament. The promontory is a bony protrusion separating the oval window and the round window. The facial nerve runs through the middle ear across this promontory. There is a thin layer of mucous membrane lining the middle ear cavity. The ossicles are connected in such a way that allows them to move and pivot against one another. They are suspended in the middle ear by a number of ligaments. There are 2 small middle ear muscles attached at each end of the ossicles. The tensor tympani muscle is attached to the malleus, and the stapedius muscle is attached to the neck of the stapes. It is also referred to as the stapedial muscle. The ossicles are so small that all 3 would fit on a 1-pence piece. The stapes is the smallest bone in the human body. The tensor tympani muscle is innervated by a branch of the trigeminal nerve, the 5th cranial nerve. The trigeminal nerve is also responsible for sensation in the face. Its contraction moves the malleus in such a way that the tympanic membrane moves. Its contraction is referred to as the tensor tympani reflex. The tensor tympani reflex is not thought to be a response to sound. It can be caused by a puff of air into the eye or by touching the external auditory canal. The stapedius muscle is attached to the neck of the stapes and is innervated by a branch of the facial nerve, the 7th cranial nerve. This also controls the muscles of the face. When the stapedius muscle contracts, it prevents the ossicles from moving freely, thus temporarily reducing their ability to conduct sound across the middle ear. This contraction is referred to as the stapedius or stapedius reflex. The stapedius reflex occurs in the presence of sudden loud sounds and reduces our ability to hear low-frequency sounds. It typically lasts between 15 and 30 seconds. The stapedius reflex occurs just before vocalization or speaking, and it happens in both ears at the same time. It is thought to protect the inner ear from damage due to loud sounds. However, the reflex is short-lived, so will only protect us from impact noises. There is some evidence that it helps us to cope with noisy environments, as background noise is often made up of low-frequency sounds. The stapedius reflex also helps prevent us hearing our own voice too loudly when we speak. It mainly reduces our ability to hear the low-frequency components of our own speech. The Eustachian tube, or the auditory tube,
leads from the middle ear cavity to the nasopharynx, an area at the back of the nose and mouth. In adults, the Eustachian tube sits at an angle of 30 degrees to the horizontal plane. The Eustachian tube opens when we swallow or yawn. It opens about once per minute while we are awake and once every 5 minutes during sleep. Its function is to equalize the pressure on either side of the tympanic membrane, that is, to keep the middle ear pressure the same as that of the environment. It remains open in babies up to 6 months of age.
The tympanic membrane is in its optimum position when the pressure in the middle ear is the same as that of the outer ear. The Eustachian tube regulates the middle ear pressure. When we go up in an aeroplane, the outer ear pressure is reduced and we experience a sensation of popping or pressure in the ears until the Eustachian tube is able to equalize the pressure. We encourage the Eustachian tube to open up by yawning, eating boiled sweets, or by doing the Valsalva maneuver. This involves holding your nose, closing your mouth, and blowing hard, forcing air up the Eustachian tube into the middle ear. As the tympanic membrane vibrates in response to sound, it moves the handle of the malleus, which is attached to it. This movement is transferred to the other ossicles. The footplate of the stapes moves in the oval window, thus transferring the energy to the inner ear. Remember, high intensity or loud sounds will cause the tympanic membrane to move a greater distance, and so in turn the ossicles. Low frequency or low pitch sounds will cause slower movements than high frequency sounds. The middle ear transforms sound energy into movement of the ossicles and then into movement of a fluid called endolymph in the inner ear. The middle ear transfers energy from one medium to another. The resistance to movement, also called impedance, of air is different to the resistance of endolymph, which is a fluid. The middle ear therefore acts as an impedance matching transformer. It converts airborne energy into mechanical energy and then into hydraulic energy. The middle ear is particularly efficient in transferring energy from the outer ear to the inner ear. The area of the tympanic membrane that vibrates is effectively 17 times larger than the oval window. This means that all the energy is concentrated onto a much smaller area. As the ossicles pivot against each other, their lever action causes an increased force at the oval window. The concave shape of the tympanic membrane causes most movement to be at the umbo. The handle of the malleus is attached here, and therefore it moves at the greatest amplitude possible in response to the sound.